live tonight to do a quick little craft with you and show you a way you can finish one of our DIY kits that are available in the shop. Great. Okay, so this is a DIY kit that's available in the shop. We just had 10 new products hit the shop last Thursday. Lots of beautiful floral products. We've got some pretty floral black banners that say bloom on them. We have some door hangers and tiered tray pieces and a cute little chicken door hanger. So something a little bit different than just spring stuff. And hopefully I can see comments on TikTok. So I'm live on TikTok and Facebook tonight. And I am going to distress this background here. I'm going to paint it white and then kind of rough up the edges. So I'm starting with some antique Waverly wax. I'm going to grab a baby wipe and really just focus on the outside edges here, where I'm going to create a kind of a crackly look. And peel away some of that paint. So our DIY kits are all wood laser cut kits, and all of the pieces are individually cut, so it's easy for you to paint them. You paint them individually and then glue them on, which makes it easy painting, but also gives you a great kind of a 3D sign. And a lot of our kits also have the score marks to help you place those items. So if it's a lot of lettering, I try and include the score mark. If it's something I think you would want more flexibility with that, we leave the score mark off so you can place your items where you want. But also, there's a back side to this piece of wood. So if it's a shape that's symmetrical, like a round or something like this, you can always just flip it over and ignore my score marks and do your own thing, right? So I'm gonna flip this over. I did a painting example on here, but you can see there's no score marks here. So that gives you that flexibility to just paint it how you want or place your items how you want. Okay. Let's see. I am gonna let that dry, and this one comes with this floral design on the top, which this design is on all of the bloom items. And it sits at the top like this. And then there's also the individual flowers that sit on top. So this is a 3-layer design, which really just gives it a little more dimension. So these will all just slot in here as like this. So you'll piece them together. So if you love puzzles, these kits are right up your alley. And let's see, there we go. All right. So I already have my letters painted here. One thing that I love doing is using masking tape to hold my pieces down. It really makes it easy to paint these. I'll probably come over this green and do something a little bit different. I had painted the letters in a previous video, so I'm going to come in and change the letters on Mom and yew, but they're all just this really pretty sage green. Now for the flowers, we're going to do a water color technique. So I'm going to tape these down so they'll, and I'm going to use watercolor on them. But I want my watercolor to be vibrant when I place it on there. And because this is wood and wood is super porous, if I were to use watercolor on here, this would create kind of a stained look, which is super pretty too. It would just have the wood grain poking through, and it'd be a really soft, if I was using pink, it'd be a really soft pink. But I want it to be super vibrant, so I'm going to paint a coat of white on here first, and then we will add the watercolor on it. This is going to seal the wood and then allow us to have that really vibrant color. Okay, so I'm going to use a makeup sponge for this. This is one I used earlier today. It's been painted with. I'm just going to snip the end off here and put a coat of white down on my flowers. Hello, hello. So if you are interested in any of our kits, the shop is redbirddesigns.com, or the link, or the website, excuse me, redbirddesigns.com. And all of the new kits are always listed right on the main page, but you can definitely hit the shop button and dive into all the different kits that we have. But any of the spring kits would be really great Mother's Day gifts. I think handmade gifts are the best gifts, and especially for moms, they love handmade gifts. So you could order a kit and create something special for mom, or better yet, if your mom is crafty, order a couple kits and have a crafting date. I always remember crafting with my mom and my grandma. Both of my grandmas were very crafty, and I loved just hanging out and making stuff with them. And then I would always get crafty with my daughters, who are now grown and on their own. And they'll come over and craft with me once in a while. But I sure do miss that. So if you have memories of crafting with mom or grandmas, let me know in the comments. Okay, so we've got our base coat of white down. We're going to let that dry. And now I'm going to put my base coat of white on here. Now, because these are scored on, there's like a little engraving on the wood where my letters are scored. And so that makes it super nice that we can just paint right over it and we'll still be able to see it. You have to get the paint on pretty thick to not be able to see through those score marks, through the paint, and see those score marks. This first coat is always pretty patchy, pretty splotchy with wood. We're just pretty much sealing that wood. It kind of looks pretty terrible. Plus I watered it down a little bit so it would flow a little bit easier, which makes it less pigmented and super splotchy. But that's okay, it's just our first coat. So let me bring this up to you. See how we can still see a shadow of those score marks, so we can find where to place those letters even after painting it. So you don't have to, if you get a kit like this, you don't have to try and paint around all of these. Just go right over it. You'll still see it. And if you don't see it, you know, as you're painting it, you start to see those disappear. Just take your brush and pull up some of that paint so it pulls away from those score marks. You can easily find them. Okie dokie. Let's see. Let me find my green. I actually cleaned up my desk today, and usually I have a pile of paint right here. But I put everything away today. Okay, I'm going to use acrylic paint for the leaves on my flower arrangement. And I'm going to, because they're small detailed items, I'm going to use a makeup sponge for this. A makeup sponge makes a really great tool for painting little detailed items, little wood cutouts, because it paints just that top. You've got this nice flat surface here. Using a small amount of paint, you don't want to glob your paint on. Just a small amount so it's nice and, you know, smooth here. Then you just tap, tap, tap on your pieces, and it literally just paints the top. That way you're not getting paint down in the cracks and crevices and on the edges, and having to worry about that. I like to keep my edges of my cutout the dark color. I think it just helps the wood pieces stand out and give them even a little more dimension. So you'll notice that I'm being super messy right here. I kind of went over into the flowers, but if you remember, these are going to sit on top of these flowers. So it really doesn't matter how we paint this. I just want to be sure that all the leaf bits are covered in green. So when I go to put my flowers on, my greenery is all taken care of. Okay. And this green is a little different than this green. So what I'm going to do is just come back and I must have grabbed the wrong green. I want them to match. So I'm just going to do a quick coat over my letters with this new green. And when you're painting letters in a kit like this, I always recommend putting your tape down and laying out your letters as you would read them, especially when they're separated. Like flowers, it's all connected, so not a big deal. I'm sure you'll know that, you know, which side is up, right? But some of the letters, when they're not connected, can get confusing on what side is up and what side is down. And sometimes the letters are symmetrical, like the O, you could have it either way. This U could be either way, and even the Y. But I like to have them right reading, so if there is some decorative items on there, I don't accidentally paint the wrong side. But really, if you do, and I have before in the past, it's not really a big deal. Just let it dry and flip it over and paint the other side, and no one's the wiser. And I was going to paint you and Mom's a different color, so I'd probably come back and do that too, just so they stand out. So let me know as you join where you're watching from. I'm seeing some people kind of pop in. Hello, hello. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay. There's that. I'm going to come back and put a second coat of white on my flowers. I really want those sealed before I add the watercolor. And we have to make sure that this is dry as well. There we go. All right, I'm gonna blow dry this sign. It's still pretty wet and we wanna get our second coat on there. So give me just a few seconds to bless this guy. There we go. I'll get some more white out. And a large, where's my large? I was using the black sponge brush to start with, but it's sitting in some dirty water and I don't want to have to deal with it. There'll be times where I'm crafting and I literally go through half my brushes as I'm crafting because I don't want to wash them as I'm going. So I just grab another one and then it gets thrown in my water jug. And who has time to clean while you're crafting? Okay, I'm going to rough up my edges. So I've kind of left them a little rough around the edges, not taking that paint all the way to the edge. But there is a nice second coat there. And I'm just taking my brush now and smoothing out some of my brush strokes by just gently pulling that paint. So if you have any big brush strokes, you can kind of just gently, and I'm just using the weight of the brush. I'm not pushing down at all. I just set it down and pull. And the weight of the brush is helping me smooth out those brush strokes. And we can still see the kind of shining right now because it's wet, but we can still see where we need to glue down our letters. Okay, let's come in and add some color to the moms and you. And I think I'm going to grab a blue or a pink. Maybe a pink. Pink and green look good together. And I'll be adding pink in the flowers, so. Okay, now another makeup sponge. So I cut this one in half because I only needed a small square applicator for these letters. I'm all about trying to get as much use out of these makeup sponges as possible. And I don't want to clean them. I don't think I have ever even tried cleaning them, honestly. I just let the paint dry and then I cut the hardened paint off and then I have a brand new applicator. And I can get 5 to 8 projects off of one makeup sponge if I'm frugal about it. I'm not sure if I'm going to like this pink. And maybe it's just because it's against this green tape background. But we'll see. We'll see how it looks when the flowers are done. And we'll see. Okay. I've got my greenery done. My letters are done. And I made a little mistake. I got green on my W there, so I'll fix that. And those are still wet, so I'm going to come and grab my blow dryer again. The blow dryer is super handy when you're crafting. Okay, there we go. All right, it's still a little bit damp. And when you're doing your DIY kits, you want to make sure that your background is extremely dry before you glue your pieces on, because it will not stick good. Your pieces will just fall off. So make sure that this is super dry. It's a little bit damp still, but for the purposes of distressing my edges, we can continue on. So I've got this little plastic razor blade. You could use a gift card, but I'm just taking it and I'm going to scrape my edges. And it will come up fairly easy, especially because it's not completely set yet. It hasn't dried for very long, so I can kind of pick at it a little bit. But also with the antique wax, this has got the wax in it, so it creates a smooth, waxy finish. And so that kind of gives us the ability to pull away that paint along the edges. And you can see some of that dark wax underneath. I'm going to distress it up here along the top. And see how we've got that really pretty worn look around the edges. And you can distress it as much as you want. You can take the whole distressing all the way through the sign. I just want to do the edges just a little bit here. And if you don't want it distressed at all, you just paint the entire thing a solid color. You are the creator, and you get to style it how you want. You can always use a sanding block as well. Kind of distress the edges. And that gives you just more of a smoother distressing as opposed to this scratchy type look that we've got here, where it's been painted and it's been banged up and the wood is scratched away. But you could also add a sanding block into the mix, and we can sand the edges all the way around and show even more. So it's more of a smoother blend, softer distressing. It's just kind of softly takes that paint away on the edges. And you can do one or the other, or do both like I'm doing. Okay, there we go. Just clean this away so you can see this. And of course it's white, so it's hard to see. And I'm going to take a chip brush and add a little dark even on top of the white. So I've got this crusty old chip brush. It's been painted with, but the bristles are stiffened with paint. I haven't washed it, and it makes the perfect scratchy markings. So I'm going to load just the tip up with that wax and then unload it. I just want to have a small amount of that paint on my bristles. And I'm just going to gently drag this around my edges. I'm going to pick up in some areas and just add a little dark. It's very subtle. You could add in other colors as well. A lot of times when I'm distressing something, I like to add a little pop of teal in it, or red, black. There we go. So you can see that, but it just adds a little bit of some like worn dark areas where it might have gotten dirty. Okay. And we'll just kind of drag a few lines through the whole side. Very light. Nothing too heavy. Okay, there we go. Well, thanks, Terry. Okay, let's go and check out our flowers here. This is done. So this is going to sit up here. We can start placing our items out, kind of seeing how it's going to look. I am not sure if I'm loving the pink mom. I might have to go with black. I'm not going to take it off the tape quite yet because it's just, I think, the wrong pink. And I don't know if I can find a pink that I'm going to love. Pink is a hard color for me anyways. My favorite colors are blues and neutrals. And pinks are just hard. I try and use them just to kind of think outside of the box and not be so predictable with everything I do. But I always tend to come back to the colors you love. And why not, right? Okay. So let's paint with some watercolor. So I've just got I think it was like $8. It's just a watercolor palette from Hobby Lobby. I think it's the Master's Touch brand. Nothing too expensive, nothing too crazy. And again, we want to make sure our white paint is nice and dry. And I've got just this little bottle of clean water. You want to have clean water. This one up here is super messy and dirty, so I don't want to use that because it will muddy my watercolor. So I'm going to get some water in my brush, and I'm going to start with the pinks. We're just going to go with some pink flowers. And I'm adding water to my tray here, and activating my paint. So I'm just moving that water around in the little square here and just picking up that paint, that watercolor. Okay, so I'm going to paint this big one to start with. I'm going to grab a little more water on my brush, and I'm just going to move that puddle of paint around, and it's going to kind of sink down into the white a little bit. It's not like a typical watercolor where it's going to flow super easy on like watercolor paper, but it does give us this really pretty blooms in different areas that are darker and lighter. And I'm not sure if you can see that, but let me try and hold that up to you. So I just had whatever I had on my brush, and it had a bunch of water in it, and I just moved that around. And can you see how I've got dark areas and light areas? And that's just where that pigment was more dense there. And you can kind of move those puddles around and force a little more blooms to happen in, different areas. And if you're new to watercolor, a bloom is where, not to get too technical tonight, but when you put a color down and then you add more pigment to it and it's wet on wet, it creates this beautiful bloom where one color flows into another. So if you've watched artists on social media, you'll see them kind of do a close-up of down and then they add another and this bloom happens and they just combine. That's what that is. Not to get too technical tonight. Thank you for the likes. Thank you so much. Anyway, so that's how you can add a different technique to our DIY kits. Just a different finish. It's super pretty. And then what we can do is, I'm going to go grab, let's see, I'm going to try and get that pink out. I'm going to grab some yellow here. And it's handy when you're doing watercolor to have a couple different cups of water. You know, your rinse cup and then a clean cup, so you can pick up some clean water for the next color. But I was not very prepared tonight for that, so we're gonna just make do. But I'm gonna put this in here, and if this pink were still wet, my yellow would bloom out into that and combine and make this pretty color. And I'm going to see if I can get it to do that, but it's kind of already dry, so it's not going to bloom too much for me. But let's just add that yellow to all my centers. And we'll start to add some different colored flowers here. This sad little spray bottle of a water bottle. I cannot believe this. I should just run and grab some more water, but oh, that's white. Okay, let me find let's grab this purple. I thought this was a light pink because I must have added pink and white together and it looked purple or light pink to me. Anyways, okay, grab some water. And we're going to add a couple purple flowers in here. Just pushing that water that has the watercolor in it around, letting those pigments kind of do what they want. So I have some dark and light areas. And I purposely left some of the white kind of peeking through around the edges, but you could definitely go all to the very edge of your flowers if that's what you're wanting. I'm trying to be a little messy and just letting the watercolor do what it wants so it looks like watercolor. Okay, let's go back to the pink. We'll do one more with this dark pink, and then I'll grab an orangey color. And a lot of times you can, if you wanted to even pull up the paint, you can. You can kind of lift that watercolor up so you get some varying colors as well. So for instance, if I wanted to pull up some of this purple, I'm going to wash out my brush, and then I'm going to make sure it doesn't have any paint or water in it. So I'm tapping it onto the side here, just kind of taking out the water. And then I'm going to just brush over this purple and lift some of it up, which gives me, kind of gives me some lighter areas. And I'll lift this up so you can kind of see those light areas where you see a little bit of that white kind of coming through. So you can kind of lift watercolor up too. It has to be somewhat still, dry or wet for this technique to work, for you to be able to lift that color. If it's completely dry, then that doesn't work. So, on this purple one, right there, you can see the white highlight. That's where I lifted that purple up, and it gives me just kind of an area where maybe the sun is hitting and gives me some dimension and some dimension to my flowers. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, I can see it on my screen. Okay. And I also lifted up some right here. Okay. All right, let's see what color. Let's grab this orangey color and see what that's gonna do. That is really pretty. I've kind of got a little bit of pink in my brush still and a little bit of purple because I don't have plain water, but it's giving me this really pretty, almost coral colored flower instead of just a complete orange. Just grab a little bit more water to push that paint around. I think these are so pretty. I love the looks of watercolor. I think watercolor flowers are so pretty. And someday, it's on my bucket list to go down the watercolor rabbit hole and kind of maybe pick up that technique a little bit more. I know enough about watercolor to probably make watercolor artists cringe, which isn't very much. Okay. Hello, hello. I love working with watercolors. Yes, I do too. I just haven't really expanded my knowledge there. I think they're so pretty, but just haven't really given it much time to really know what I'm doing. Okay. Like I said, just enough to play and have fun, I guess. I should have possibly found out how these flowers go together before I painted them. I have a feeling I'm going to have some oranges sitting next to each other, or the same colors. Okay, where am I at? I think this one goes here. Yes. I should just be gluing these down. Where's this one go? Right here. Right there. No. There we go. Okay, and then this one. We have two purples right next to each other. Well, I think it's a kind of a pinky color. And then this bigger one sits right there. And then this one sits here. All right, this wasn't such a hard puzzle, guys. We did it. Okay, how's that look? So again, just a different way you can incorporate something, a different finish technique instead of just solid acrylic paints. It just gives you some fun texture on those flowers. All right, so I am going to come in. I just don't know if I love this pink. I'm going to go and do these black. And maybe I won't like black either, but we'll commit to the black for now. And we'll see how it goes. I just really wanted these two words to stand out on my sign. Okay, I think that's gonna really pop. So if you're just joining and curious about what we're painting, this is a DIY kit on our website, redbirddesigns.com. It is a new kit that was just added last Thursday. Oh, excuse me. We have a ton of pretty floral kits available, which are perfect for Mother's Day coming up, or just some spring crafting. Add a little color in as we slowly move out of winter. But handmade gifts are always the best gifts for Mom. And better yet, grab two and set up a crafting date with her. Okay, there we go. If moms were flowers, I'd pick you. So let me know what you think. And if you would do watercolor on your sign. If you do this technique, I would love to see your creation. Make sure to tag me in it. And the next step would be to glue all the pieces down, but I won't do that right now. That's kind of a boring step. I will let you know that I use super glue or this glue, Stick Fast Instant Adhesive. It has a thickness to it that super glue doesn't. Now you can get like Gorilla Glue that is more of a gel, so it's a little thicker, so it doesn't run all over the place, but I use a lot of it, so for the price, this is just a better deal for me. But if you're you're not gluing very many things, you might want to just buy the smaller bottles. I think this was like 20 bucks on Amazon. Anyways, super glue this. You can use Elmer's glue. You can use, and I think I can't remember the tacky glue in the purple bottle. I want to say Anita's, but I don't think that's right. Anyways, that works too. Any sort of glue. And then you'll just string a little string on the top, and it makes this really cute little banner. So there's a couple of these, or banners, a bunting online. There's this one. There's one with, you can get with your initial. And then one with just a hello if you wanted it to be more neutral in the wording. And yeah, So anyways, thanks for hanging out with me tonight. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Cara. Aren't they pretty colors? I love the orange and pinks and purples together, even though I'm not a pink person. And dyeing your yarn, that sounds interesting. I have never dyed yarn. Do you have to get a special yarn for that? I suppose it would maybe a cotton white you would have to do that. I guess I've never even heard of that. That sounds super fun. All right, guys. And sorry, guys, my comments are coming in a little bit late. But anyways, I'm glad I was able to go live tonight with you guys. Have a great rest of the evening. And don't forget, we are going live Thursday at 1 to craft with some birdhouses in our Crafty Living group. If you want to come join us in the group, it's free. Just the group is part of our Facebook page, or it's linked in the bio. And we go crafty, or we go live in there and craft every week. It's a group where we can share our crafts and talk about crafting. Sometimes it can feel pretty lonely when you're crafting and nobody else in your home or family gets it. So it's just a place where we can hang out and share. And then I go and do lives and try and share what I know with you guys. So. Okay. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.